Welcome back to the Diary of a CMO, the podcast where I sit with CMOs and thought leaders in marketing and related media, tech, and creative industries. We'll talk about how they got to where they are, strategies and life lessons we can learn from them to help build a career, business, and ultimately a life that we love. I hope you enjoy, and please subscribe. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Diary of a CMO. This is episode 5, and we are picking up, steam gradually. We started off with one episode a month. We're trying to ramp up now to at least 2 episodes a month, and thankfully, um, the people within our network and the CMOs and marketing leaders that we reach out to have been very gracious enough to come on the podcast. Speaking of being gracious, there's my guest today, and I was saying to him just before we came on that he's such a gentleman. I've had one other gentleman on this podcast. Shout out to Mr. Lankwe Omoyele. This is another gentleman, a perfect gentleman. His demeanor is so admirable. Not just that, he's had over 30 years experience in the advertising industry and broader marketing communication space. From Volcano Group to Grey, WPP, now Boundless, and everything in between. His record is incredible. It's phenomenal. I was saying to him as well that when he got into advertising, I was probably still running around in diapers. Forgive the graphic analogy. Uh, so it's my pleasure. I have the distinguished honor and privilege to be able to spend the next hour or so with, as I said, a distinguished gentleman, a marketing and advertising legend in South Africa and I dare say across the African continent, Paul Jackson. Thank you very much, Paul, for
Morning.
joining us.
Good morning, Ayoto, and thank you for quite an introduction. And I hope I live up to the introduction that you've given. You make me feel really, really old.
I
I'm
apologize. I
imagining,
apologize. I apologize, Paul.
I'm imagining you in diapers, Ayoto. But
Oh, please don't. Oh, please don't. Please don't. Let's let that graphic die.
but
Thank
lovely
you so much,
opportunity,
Paul.
and I really admire what you're doing. With this podcast and reaching out to people, around the world. To capture stories and share information. And so kudos to you and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I really do. I really, really do. It means a lot to me coming from you. I really do. I think that, as I like to start off the podcast, I mean, there's so much I want to talk to you about today. We'll try to keep everything within an hour so I can let you get back to your day. But the first thing which I usually like to do is I like my guests to do some kind of introduction. For those who are meeting you for the first time, Paul, how would you introduce yourself? And I like to give a framework. I like to give a framework for the introduction in such a way that the introduction in such a way that we get an idea of your background. We get an idea of how you got into advertising, what you're doing now, what your professional journey has looked like, and obviously what the future holds. It's a long intro.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, I'm an African. Africa is part of my soul, and it's part of who we are and who I am. And I have a real love for the people of this continent. And I've traveled all over the world. I've been very fortunate to see many different countries, meet all sorts of people. And whenever you come back to this continent, you realize how special this place is and how special the people are and how creative our people are. And I have a real passion for Africa. I have a real passion for creativity. And I have a real passion for helping African creativity get out into a world stage. And I think we're well underrepresented. I think the world likes to steal with their eyes, in terms of what we've got to offer out of Africa, and then take that into other markets. And it makes me really happy to see African creativity performing well, whether it be through fashion or music or communications or film, whatever it might be. I love to see that. So that really drives me. That's always been a passion of mine. I love the creative business and creative businesses, and I love to lead people and work with people that inspire me and keep me young. So 30 years in, I'm still going, and it's because of the young people I get to work with, especially young
Wow.
creative people that keep you young and give you the drive and the passion to do what we do every day. So yeah, as you say, I've been 30 years in the business. I started out an independent agency called Volcano back in 1994. That's 30 years ago, and that won. It was an independent agency that won the Ad Age International Agency of the Year. I think it was one of, or the only African agency to do so. And all the global networks came knocking and wanted to partner with us. We then sold our business to WPP, and then took over the Grey brand because they had exited the country 2-3 years before and went about proceeding to rebuild the brand, in the country, on the continent, and taking it to one of the most successful creative agencies, on the continent. And I left Grey last year, took some time off, and as you've said, I've started a new agency called Boundless with my new partners, and I'm ready to start over. And it feels like I'm 21 again. So
Wow.
I'm really excited about that. Very, very excited.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And if you
Thank you
ask
very
me
much, Paul.
my life's mission, it's about creating and building enduring businesses, enduring brands, and as we'll talk about, I've got a passion for real estate and property as well. I like to see things and build things that last. So that really what drives me, and to do that with people I like and people that inspire me. Those are the things that really get me out of bed in the morning.
Wow. Wow. I always have to apologize to the audience, people who would be listening to the podcast, because I like to say that this podcast has a selfish motive somewhere underlining, you know, which is I want to have the kind of conversations that I want to have with the
Mm,
guest, and hope that the audience, benefit from that conversation as well. I think it is extremely remarkable that your first sentence in introducing yourself is or was, "I am African." Oh my God, Paul.
mhm.
You know how in a love story I can't remember the movie now, or the movie reference. Says something, I think it was something along the lines of "You had me at hello." That
Uh,
reference.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, Paul, you had me at that. I am African, and
Mm,
it's just so profound. It is so profound. Especially with all of the nuances within your own region,
mm,
historically, more recently, or otherwise, as the case may be. That is so profound, and it's something that we definitely need a lot more of.
mm,
It's as much as it's profound within your region on the continent. In similar fashion, even within our own region on the continent, in terms of inter-ethnic sort of differences or whatever.
mm, mm.
Your intro is a clarion call. And I don't know why I'm going on and on about this. It's a clarion call to us as a continent to be better, to do better, laugh together, live together, work together,
Mm,
build
mm,
together, thrive together.
mm.
It's so profound, and I appreciate that a lot. I really, really do.
Yeah, and
Also,
we have the talent and we have the people. We just need the confidence, the confidence to get out there and get on the world stage. And it was lovely to see, Steve and his business from Extreme performing very well at Cannes last year. And we need to see more of that. We need to see more
yeah,
of the African countries performing well and stepping up. And he has a sense of profound confidence that is
right.
just that's wonderful to see. And we
Wow.
don't need to stand aside for anyone. We really don't. And we need to push. We need to push hard and really take our talent to the world.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's a very good place to segue into one of my main questions today, which is the conversation, and it's a segue because I wasn't planning to ask this, but on the back of what you'd said,
Mm,
is the talent conversation.
yeah,
Is to ask the question along the lines of how can we do better. Certain things are being done across the regions in terms of talent development, talent acquisition, making the industry a lot more attractive for younger talents who want to come in,
yeah,
um, type of thing.
good,
My question is, what are the things that you think that we can do better to improve that?
mm,
Because
mm,
regardless of how great or not great that context might be right now, is that it can always get better. And in your
yeah,
perspective, what are the ways that we can do that? Make the industry a lot more attractive for younger talents to want to come in.
yeah, yeah. I think, when we start getting a little bit older, we always look back at the younger generation, and we're always hypercritical of the younger generation in that they're not working as hard or not doing things the way we thought they should be doing it, etc. And actually, I actually feel a little bit differently about this new young generation. I'm talking, fresh out of school, early 20s.
Right,
They are incredibly driven, incredibly creative, and incredibly aspirational. And they love to use technology to express themselves and to learn. And formal schooling is fantastic, and I think it should be pursued by everyone. Everyone should get some form of formal schooling or university and something behind their name. But what's
sure,
wonderful to see is how they're using technology and tools to learn almost on the fly. So
right,
problem solving and using tech and technology and talking with communities to learn. So I'm really excited to see how that generation applies that way of learning and that way of working in solving business problems. And
right,
because of the world view that they've got compared to, say, generations 10 or 15 years before,
right.
um, is that better chance of us, showing the work to the rest of the world, connecting with the rest of the world, and leveraging the talent that we have. So I don't expect young people to come into this business in the traditional way that they did before, and that was necessarily through getting a degree, getting an internship, and coming in. I
Right,
think
right,
if we, as senior leaders in the business, have our eyes a little bit more open, we can find fresh talent that may have not
mm,
come through the formal channels, but yet
got it,
with just a little bit of shaping, a little bit of molding, and teaching about how this business works, we can leverage fresh, new, young talent, in the business.
got it,
So, for me, that's exciting. But the creativity needs to be seen in the broadest possible sense. It shouldn't be seen as only advertising or communications. We should
got it.
look at creativity in its broader sense. And I think our business and our industry is starting to do that, where we're
Yeah,
using fashion and music and popular
right,
culture and
right,
film and all sorts of all of these tools to express ourselves and to build brands and communicate with people. And if we embrace it and look at it with a much broader view, then I feel that younger people will be attracted to this business more,
got it,
because advertising is just a very thin sliver, or a very very blunt tool, as they say, to
right.
achieve our objectives. There's so many other ways of doing it, and if you only see yourself as an advertising agency, an advertising business, I think you're going to lose a lot of the younger talent who've got so many options at their feet.
Interesting. Interesting. I think that's
Mm.
very instructive for, companies or firms in the advertising business, to really start to rethink or take a second look at how they've approached this historically.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just, I'm also curious in terms of, for you, what has been your, what have you been most fascinated about in terms of, the new young talent coming into the space? What was let me put it this way, what was a culture shock for you as you started, as you worked a lot more closely with the younger talent?
Yeah.
What was a shocking discovery for you?
I don't know if it's so much a shock, but it has been a surprise, and it's been a pleasant surprise at
Right.
how ambitious these young people are and fearless. That they embrace technology and they do things in such a fearless way.
What
And because of
the
that, they learn
hell is going?
quickly and they do very interesting things. So, if I look at a generation, say 10 or 15 years older than them, they were a writer or an art director or a photographer or a filmmaker or whatever it might be. Whereas I look at some of the really top young talent, and they come in and they use all sorts of tools to express themselves, and they're not scared to use those tools. So for me, that's been quite inspiring and quite a thing to see, and really gets me excited for the future.
Yeah, yeah, I completely
So
agree with you.
yeah, so that's exciting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I was one of the questions I thought I would ask you, and it might sound like I'm putting you on the spot, but that's sort of unavoidable with these kinds of
Go for it.
platforms.
No. Give me your best.
I'll try. Is when you look back on 30 years of doing this, right? What are the campaigns or advertising campaigns that that stand out to you within your portfolio, or the ones you had the privilege of working with your team or a team on? Which ones
Mm-mm.
would you say your top two, or let's just say your in no particular order? Let me ease the tension a little bit. In no particular order, what would you say your top three are, and why?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's been many, and I've had the privilege of working on international brands and international campaigns. I've had the privilege of taking international campaigns and apply them on the continent. I've had the privilege of building local brands and local work that's won on the world stage. So yeah, a mix of all of those things. So I think if I have to think back a couple of back to my Volcano days, some of our most awarded work was for a brand called Garmin when we launched their fitness devices. And we did some very, very cutting edge and groundbreaking work, which they used actually in other markets around the world.
Oh
And
wow,
it won at Cannes, and it won all over the place. It was really, really successful, and it was a lot of fun
wow,
making it as well. Yeah.
wow,
Then shortly after that, I had the privilege of working with Sony Corporation to bring the World Cup to Africa for the first time. And
right,
I was very involved in developing a lot of the creative and a lot of the work that was used, not just in this country, not just with FIFA locally, but used in international markets as well. So I worked a lot with the teams in Japan and Europe, and after that in Brazil, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to be exposed to the sporting and the sponsorship disciplines, and again
right,
showcasing Africa, and what South
right.
Africa had to offer, and the African continent had to offer. So that was special to me, and that was probably 5 years of work, believe it or not. It's an enormous amount of work that gets done before an event of that size and nature takes place. And then recently, as WPP, I'd worked with an integrated agency team to pitch for the work at Distel, which has now become Heineken.
Right.
And they had a beautiful portfolio of brands. And one of those brands was one of the biggest cider brands in the world called Savannah. And it's a Savannah uses comedy in the way it communicates and connects with people. And we've produced or had produced an enormous amount of work right through COVID, post COVID, to build that brand. And we've turned it into a powerhouse brand in this part of the world and one of the biggest cider brands in the world over. And that work has also won an enormous amount of awards, both in creativity and effectiveness, and was very successful for then Distel, now Heineken. So
Wow.
those were
Wow.
three highlights, and I can give you many more, but three
Yeah.
highlights that
Yeah.
I could think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah. Nah. If we if you were to give me more, we would leave this call. I mean, 30 years. Come on, like who would leave this? Who would leave this? Who would leave this podcast? I can only imagine the World Cup one. Coming to Africa for the first time, and the amount of excitement and pride and joy, and that would have gone into working on
Yeah,
that kind of project. It must have been such a beautiful moment for you, for sure.
for sure. And and so much was at stake because it was our reputation and it was our opportunity to showcase the people and the creativity, and that this is not a place to be feared, but somewhere come and enjoy and to be celebrated. And it was wonderful. It was really a wonderful time. Yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to build a career in advertising?
Ayota, I'd be lying if I said yes. No, is the honest truth. Um, I tell you, I have a passion for commercial property and real estate because I
Interesting.
love to build things and I love to see things come to fruition and to last a long time. And that 10 years, 15 years later, you can still see that thing that you created. So something that I'm very drawn to that. So I've always had a love for property and commercial real estate. So my sideline or side hustle is in commercial real estate. But my father was in advertising, and he started many creative agencies, award-winning agencies, sold them
Wow.
to multinational networks, and I think that's where I learned it. So it's been in the blood from a very early age. And I remember sitting around the dinner table, with the family talking about the latest commercial that my father had
Wow.
just worked on and released. And with a great sense of pride, to see how people, see a piece of work and talk about it outside, just around the dinner table at night. And that always grabbed me. I think it's the closest thing you get to being in Hollywood or a rock star
Wow.
releasing a new
Wow.
album or an Elon Musk launching a new brand. I think it's the closest thing you
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
So that always enticed me to it. So my passion has been in commercial property, but my skill and I think my talent is in advertising and not so much on the creative side, but in working with creative people to bring things to life. That's a particular talent of mine, and I enjoy that.
Fantastic. So you're second
Mm.
generation ad man.
Second generation ad man. That's right. Yeah.
That's really beautiful, and I think again that's a testament to some of the challenges that you find not just in Africa, obviously across the world, in terms
Mm,
of having that sort of strong family unit, and
mm,
the role that plays in sort of raising a child and inspiring a child,
mm, mm,
to a particular kind of life. It's a testament to that,
mm.
and I'm sure your parents are very proud.
Yeah, no, no, and I'm very fortunate to have the childhood and the parents that I did. Yeah, so yeah, I was very
Fantastic,
lucky.
fantastic,
Mm,
fantastic. Um, I wanted to go into a bit more, a bit more. I don't want to say serious, but some more interesting conversations, at least for the purpose of the industry where we play.
yeah.
And that's the conversation in terms of the collaboration between marketing teams, CMOs, and business leaders and CEOs and all of that stuff. Sometimes there appears to be a disconnect in terms of how both sides actually come to work together to deliver on real business results.
Mm,
And
mm,
you could say that to a large extent, both sides need to take responsibilities for one thing or the other. On the marketing side is that or maybe we focus more a bit too much on checking boxes. We're supposed to do a campaign this year, we've done it. We're supposed to do and we've done that, and not necessarily asking those business critical questions in terms of the brand we are building. What level of value is it translating into the business that we work with? And on the business side, you could also say that and it's a classic conversation in terms of marketing or sales. If you had to cut a budget, where would you cut it? Type of situation.
mm,
And the
mm,
perception that classically the business side have of marketing or advertising as a truly valuable input into an overall business growth. So my question on that background is, how do you think that we can foster better collaboration between that sort of business side of companies and then the marketing services?
mm, mm. Well, it's firstly, I think you've answered a lot of your questions. So, you hit the nail on the head. In that the fault does lie on both sides, but there shouldn't really be two sides. And unfortunately, there is. Um, and you see when there's a master servant or a supplier, client relationship, and you're flipping a brief or a problem over the fence as a client and hoping for the best, in weeks to come, that the solution is just magically going to help it come together. It never works that way. It never works
Right.
that way. So,
Right.
something that I always think about when I come up with a problem is that start at the beginning. Start right at the beginning. And starting at the beginning means understand what the business is trying to achieve and what the business fundamental business problem or opportunity is. If you understand that, then what follows in terms of brand, marketing, communications, and tactics is actually pretty simple. I mean, we're in a very, very simple business. It is really not that complicated, but we love to make it a lot more complicated than it really is. And a lot of things get in the way of actually getting to the right solutions. So I always say, get back to the foundational problem. Understand that. When you understand that, then you can solve it in the right manner. And don't try and solve it with preconceived ideas in terms of what that should be. Advertising is not always the solution. Very seldom is, actually. What we really have to offer as an industry is creative problem solving. If we
Got
look
it.
at addressing problems, business problems, in a creative way, and it may be new packaging, it may be new products, it may be new distribution channels, it may be many different things before you get your communications. But you can't come up with a solution until you fundamentally understand what the challenges are.
Right.
So start at the
Right.
beginning. Think, look through the lens of creativity to solve business problems rather than trying to fix it with possibly a discipline that maybe you're used to or comfortable. And then more importantly than anything else, is understand that, this business is about people. In fact, all business is about people, and
Right.
that you need to work together. You need to collaborate, co-create, share ideas, share thinking in an atmosphere where there's no fear, where you can
Right.
express yourself.
Right.
Nobody's wrong or right, where you're open to
Right.
new ideas and you open to being challenged, both on the client and the agency side. I think
Sure.
both client and the agencies need to listen to each other more. Agencies need to listen really to understand what the problems are by thinking about the issues at hand. And clients, I think, need to be a little bit more open to some of the advice that is being provided. So yeah, it's about people, and it's about getting
Interesting.
back to basics and starting from the beginning. That's really it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
I like to
appreciate
say
that.
to my teams, and when my own advice is, when you've got an opportunity to engage with the client around a particular business problem, for goodness sake, put the pen down, get off Zoom, get off Teams, go for a lunch, go and have a sit down, have a chat, free will, get to know each other first, talk a little bit, then get into the business problem and discuss it and really get to the meat of the problem. And then you can start solving it. This very transactional nature of business, and especially in our industry, is not healthy. And I think we as an industry are poorer for it. And
Interesting.
COVID and these teams has made it worse, has exacerbated the problem. People have got lazy, and it's easier just to jump on a call or a Teams.
Right.
It's just far more expedient than actually sitting around a
Right.
table and
Right.
thinking and discussing and talking and debating.
Right. Right.
Mm.
I mean, I think speaking of sitting around the table versus jumping on Teams and Zoom, um, I think you're the perfect man to ask this question, and this is another segue. Is how are you able, or how were you able, and how are you able, assuming that you still work remote? Because I know that for advertising and creative services, I think it was a lot more challenging to work
Mm.
remotely
Mm. Mm.
versus in person. So I think my question is, how are you able to manage that, or how are you able to manage that, assuming you still have some sort of hybrid approach?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, look, I mean, firstly, just to say, it's not one or the other. It's both.
Right.
It's both. So I'm not professing that one particular route is going to work better than the other. It's not all in face, it's not all technology. The problem is that we've just become lazy, and it is expedient, so we're relying a lot more on technology. So there's a time and a place. Through COVID, I ran a multinational pitch across 20 odd countries, and it worked. The technology was wonderful to be able to connect with hundreds of people around the world. But when it came to cracking the core problems, the creative solutions, etc., nothing beats everybody jumping in a room, and sitting together and putting many, many hours together of just playing, talking nonsense, and actually coming to a really, really powerful solution. Doing that over
Right.
Teams is just almost impossible. Now, I know that I'll hear many, many people telling me why it should work and it doesn't work, and that I'm telling you that's
Yeah.
my experience. My experience is you get
Right.
to a better product quicker, that way through human interaction than you do over technology. So it's not one or the other. It's definitely
Absolutely.
a combination of both. But don't be lazy. Use the tools when you need to, but don't let face-to-face communication, human empathy, human understanding, human connection be put to the side, because it's very powerful. Don't underestimate that.
Interesting. Interesting. I think I'd like to talk about Boundless now,
Mm,
very briefly, because and the reason I want to talk about Boundless is I I think that, when it comes to advertising services or marketing services or creative problem solving, which is a new phrase I've taken from you now, by the way, Paul,
hmm
is that it's a pretty competitive space. Wouldn't you agree? In terms of that sort of demand and supply balance. And I guess my question is, what what are there any challenges that you have encountered in sort of like restarting, like you rightly put it, Boundless, and what are those challenges you've seen, especially in being competitive in an already fiercely competitive space?
mm. Yeah, there's just the normal challenges of starting a business, but they're not necessarily challenges. They're just, they're obstacles along the way that you have to overcome, and anything that's worth doing is going to be challenges that you've got to overcome. So I haven't seen them as challenges. It's just things that have got to get put in place before we move to the next hurdle. Um, and in fact, the industry has been incredibly supportive.
Wow.
Industry in general. Um, you know, Previous staff that I've worked with, previous clients, new clients, competitive agencies, even the multinational agencies. Other independents have been very, very supportive, and they'd like to see new independent shops growing and performing, which has been really heartening. And everyone has offered advice and support and so on. So, I found that quite refreshing. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, just in terms of why we've gone this route, so we've had opportunities to bring more multinational brands back to our shores, and restart that way. And we just felt that in the current mood of the market in the current day and age, that the time for independence, owner managed businesses, is ripe. And having run both an independent agency and a multinational, I see the pressures that the multinationals are under. You've got big mega clients that are cutting budgets, trimming budgets, and
Right.
when you're multinationals and you're a big chunk of the market, you feel it more than most, and your
Yeah.
margin pressures are there. And because margin pressures, you start cutting senior talent, and when you start cutting
Right.
senior talent, your creative product gets affected. And just because of the nature of the cycle in the industry we are now, and cuts, I do feel that the multinationals are under a lot more pressure than the
Yeah.
independents. And
Yeah.
I think what the independents offer is that freedom to make very quick decisions, to invest in talent, invest in people for the long term. We're not fighting quarter to quarter, trying to meet budgets and targets. We know that we're investing in someone, we're investing in them for years. So I think the time is ripe, and I'm seeing many
Interesting.
founders of new independent agencies popping up all over the place,
Right.
having left their multinational networks. Time was good there. You learned a lot, but an
Sure.
opportunity to get things moving. So really excited about starting something afresh. Even 30 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm just curious, in your case, like this is your third time, in a sense,
yeah,
of sort
yes,
of restarting, right?
yeah.
When are you going to stop, Paul?
That's a very good
I,
question. My wife asks the
I
same. No, she asks
suspect.
the same
Sorry.
question.
I suspect that I'm echoing your wife. Am I?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, she's like, when are you going to slow down? And
Oh,
when I took a break last year, so I left the business a year ago, and I took a break and went and travelled, and I was lucky to go and see my son graduate in the UK, and I just took some time off, did some different things, and restarted a couple of projects in the commercial real estate market. But what I found by the end of the year is I really, really missed this business. I missed creative people. I missed the energy. I missed, talking with clients and discussing business problems and just business in general. And, the reason for doing what we're doing now is different from maybe what it was when we started out. Before it was very commercially driven and looking for accolades and, trying to be the best and all of that. And I think now it's a little bit deeper. We're looking for camaraderie, and we're looking for being mentally challenged and stimulated with difficult things, and applying our skills and our talent. That's what drives us at the moment, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I've got two partners in Stuart Walsh and Roanna Williams, two very well known people in the industry, and very like minded, and at the same juncture as I am in my career, in looking at doing something new, something for ourselves in the way we would like to shape it and the way we would like to
interesting.
mold it. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Wow. That's I hope that answer is good enough for your wife. I'm sure it is. She definitely will be biased.
It's not.
um, I guess that this is where we get to. Obviously, I was going to ask about why the name Boundless. I suspect I have an idea, but just for clarity, why did you go for Boundless as the name?
Yeah. So it's got many different facets to it. But the fact that it's unlimited, and and unlimited in what we're able to achieve for our clients in terms of the solutions we bring, but also that we are borderless in that we can work anywhere in the world. And one of our big ambitions as Boundless is to take the talent of South Africa, the talent of Africa, and work on the world stage on global brands and international markets. And that's our big ambition. So it's boundaryless, or beyond the boundaries of just geographic boundaries. And I've worked with many international brands and many international agencies, and again, I can tell you that we can stand, shoulder to shoulder to them with them,
Yeah.
and we really can perform on the world stage. And again, it's just a sense of confidence and looking a bit broader than your own market. So yeah, the sentiment behind Boundless is to look, beyond our borders, to think at a world stage, and to win and produce, world class work that stands up against the very best out of New York or London.
Wow, that's a very bold ambition. It's a very bold one, and I
Mm,
mean, like, why not? Why not have a bold ambition? Why
mm,
not? I think this is one
yeah.
of my favorite part of the pod where we get into the elevator masterclass.
Hmm.
And Paul, I'm going to give you the floor for about 2 minutes or less or more. To take us in this sort of masterclass on what the new fundamentals of advertising are or is, as the case may
Yeah.
be. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah. So the new fundamentals, for me, yeah, in this business, and this is a personal, view of the world, is I don't know if it's about the new fundamentals. I think in this business we're always chasing the shiny new object, the shiny new
Mm,
tool, AI and new platforms and new channels and new tech. And if you're not talking, the lingo and the jargon of the new technology, you're kind of seen as a dinosaur. But yet that
right.
fad you eventually move on a year or two later, and you say, yes, that was interesting. What's new? And we're always searching out for new things. And I've got no problem in using new tools, playing new tools, testing them, and seeing what works for you, and applying them, and staying with the times. But I do feel that sometimes we leave a lot of the original thinking, those original fundamentals behind, and forget about the fundamentals of business, the fundamentals of building brands for the long term, etc. So a lot of the young digital natives who have grown up in a digital world understand the power of digital technology, but have become very tactical in their execution. Building a
Right.
brand for them, is maybe a post, or the latest, viral video that may have gone out. That you can't build brands that way and build businesses that way. For businesses and brands to be enduring, you've got to understand the fundamentals. So I really urge a lot of young people and a lot of people that have been in the business, and I remind myself of it all the time, is go back to the fundamentals of business and brand building. Never forget them. Build that. Get the business strategy right. Get the marketing strategy right. And then you can play a little bit in terms of tactics and using some of the technologies that are available to us. But they should never be used as a crutch to get you to
Right.
solutions. I watch many young people, and they get the brief and they want to solve it. The first thing they do is they go and grab a cup of coffee and they sit behind their laptop and they put their keys on the keyboard and they wait for the ideas to pop out and come out. And it doesn't work that way. We need to sit and think a little bit more and have some critical thinking and apply our minds before we rush to technology. So I get asked about AI all the time, and what is the impact on our business. And AI is a wonderful tool. It's an empowering tool, and it helps with efficiencies and helps us to work better. But it should never ever replace that critical thinking, the insight and the empathy that we have for people, and the understanding of human nature, etc. It should almost complement it. And I think there's that saying, and that very powerful lesson about, that we overestimate the power of technology in the short term, and we underestimate the power of technology in the long term. And I think
Mm.
we're in that phase with AI, whereas there's a bit of a frenzy around both the investment of it and about the application of the tools. And people are maybe going a little bit overboard on it. But in the long run, I'm pretty sure AI is going to fundamentally have a major impact on how we live our lives for the positive.
Mm.
But in the short term, don't let it become that crutch for you to do what is necessary to get the right result.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm going to ask a quick follow up.
Mm.
Um, in over 30 years, when you say get the fundamentals right, what
hmm
for you are the fundamentals?
I think it goes back to what you and I were discussing earlier, is that this is a people's business first and foremost. Don't forget it. Um, our people and our talent is our business. The talent comes up with the solutions, and those solutions are our product. And as soon as we start, um, compromising on talent and people, and we're not investing in talent and people, we either juniorizing the industry by letting senior talent go, or we're not investing in them in terms of keeping them upskilled and learning new things. As soon as we do that, the creative product and the creative solutions go out the window. And then you haven't got much. And then you mustn't bleat and complain why your margins are going through the floor, because the
Right.
value of the solutions that you're offering clients is not as valuable to them. So the one thing I've learned about this business is people is everything. It's the first
Right.
thing, it's the last thing. Everything else
Wow.
should come after that. If you look after your people, you invest in them, and as my previous regional CEO when I was the Grey Network said to me, David Patton, he said, "Go and invest in the very best people and the most talented creative people you cannot afford." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, "You may not be able to afford those people now, but believe you me, if you get them on board, they will fundamentally change your business. And once you change your business, you'll look back and you'll say that was the best investment you made." So I always stretch myself to hire the very best talent, even if I can't afford it at the time. I know that will, the talent will turn the business around, and the ROI will be there. So yeah, and biggest lesson in life, people is a people business. Hire the very best
Interesting.
talent, and
Interesting.
look after them and make sure that they stick around.
Interesting. Interesting. Oh man, thank you very much,
Mhm.
Paul. We are hitting the 1 hour mark, or we have already, but I'm just going to snake maybe about two closing questions in, if you don't mind.
No, you go for it.
Um, just in terms of your professionally speaking, now, what have been or what are your biggest influences
In terms of people, or in terms of events, or
in terms of
what?
people, in terms of platforms, in terms of publications, whatever those
Mm,
sources are? What are those places that you found, that have had the most profound influence on who you are today as an ad
mm,
man? Allow me to say
yeah.
that.
So, I mean, I think every one of us are very fortunate, in that the parents that bring us into this world shape and mold us in our early years. And I was very fortunate in that I did learn from my father, who was in the business and has taught me a lot about the business, and all of his partners that I got to meet.
Got it.
On the other side of it, from my mother's point of view, I'd learned what it means to be caring of other people and empathy, for other people. In that, you can't be a hard nosed businessman and not have empathy for people. You've got to have both sides of the coin. So certainly they had a profound impact on me. My partners throughout business, and I've always stretched myself to hire the best people in the business that are
Right.
far better than I could ever be.
Wow.
Outshine me in every respect because they make you look good. And
Right.
my partners through every phase of, all the different businesses that I've run, are the reason for my success, and they've had a profound impact on me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then if I talk outside of people platforms, yeah, just the power of the internet is very powerful, and the power of the media platforms and the access of information that we've got today is wonderful. I love podcasts. Podcasts like, my daily diet is of the Economist. Every morning I wake up, make up a coffee, and I really enjoyed the Economist podcast. Get you up to speed quickly, and that. So anything that can give you a world view and get you up to speed very, very quickly, is interesting. And I find the internet and what the access to information just so liberating and empowering. I just wish I had more time of every day to consume more of that. So yeah, so certainly that's been has a big impact on all of us. Yeah.
Mm. I think my final question is regarding what the biggest lessons are in terms of when you look back on 30 years, you'd say to yourself, I think my biggest lesson is XYZ. Like what would that be for you?
Mm. Yeah, I think if I had to say to my 21-year-old self, it's like, just slow down. There's no rush. Take your time. You know.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
That's so on point for you, right?
Yeah, slow down. Slow down, and I mean, slow down not in terms of not doing things, but slow down in terms of achieving your ambitions, and that they'll come. But as trite and as cliched as enjoy the journey is, you only get to really realize and understand what that means when you're
Mm,
older and later on in life. And you know, if you enjoy every moment, and I'm not just talking the good moments, but I'm talking the bad moments, or moments where you feel you've fallen short of your objectives or goals. There's a lesson in all of those, and there's an opportunity in those, and sometimes they push you in a new direction you never know of, but it's very often the right direction.
mm.
So yeah, just slow down, take your time, enjoy the ride, enjoy the people along the way, connect with them. Every one of those moments are special, good or bad. And yeah, you'll get there in the end. Sadly, the end will come. So
Wow.
don't rush it. Don't rush it.
Wow. Wow, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Paul. I appreciate your time. I mean, I still have a few things I wanted to ask, but we're out of time now, and I want to respect my the request that I made and what you granted. I'm really hopeful that when we do reach out to you, sometime in the future, you'll be open to coming on the pod again. I think your wealth of experience and just your overall outlook, especially from an African pride standpoint, is something, is the kind of influence that we need to have in media a lot more.
Mm.
Shout out to all of the media platforms. They are doing decent work in that area, but
Mm.
we need more of it, as much as possible. So for those reasons, your outlook on African expertise and and the impact we can make on a global level at the global stage is also very, very inspiring, very instructive. I'm sure that for people who are listening, that was something that really resonated, because it really resonated with me, because I went on and on it in the first few minutes on the board. So I thank you very much again. I look forward to having you on, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a lot more to come from Boundless. I wish you guys incredible success. I'm open to any way that I can be of value. I don't know how possibly that can be, but I would be able to. I look forward to being able to reach out to you from time to time and see how we can deliver on shared values. I thank you again. Thank you very much, Paul. I don't know if you have any last words for me.
Just to say thank you, Ayoto. Thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the time together, and I wish you all the best of luck with the podcast. And just one last parting message to say that Africa's time it's not just now, it's coming, it's here. Let's get moving. We've got the benefit of the demographic dividend coming our way, where everyone else in the world has got the opposite happening. We've got the power of technology to express ourselves and apply ourselves. And let's just remember what we've got to offer the world, and grow in confidence and get out there and share the wonderful creativity we have on this continent. But don't wait, do it now.
On that note, guys, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye, guys.